Welcome to this installment of the Officer Quick Chat. I'm Paul Peluso, an editor with Officer Media Group, and I'm joined today by David Higginbotham, product marketing manager with Safariland Group. Thank you for joining us today, David.
Absolutely, Paul. Good to be here.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about what makes a Safariland holster duty rated. And David, if you can answer a few questions for me. There are several terms in common usage in the industry. A security device, retention, level 1, 2, 3, and duty rated. Can you explain the origin and how they're used at Safariland?
Absolutely. Safariland has a pedigree with retention. We are the company that owns this terminology realistically. And that grows out of our relationship with Bill Rogers. Bill Rogers, many years ago, was an FBI agent. He had an incident in which he lost his firearm during a foot chase, and he began thinking about how to actively keep the firearm in the holster at times that it needed to stay in the holster. And his first instinct was to go somewhere where many people have gone, including John Bianchi. I'm here representing the Bianchi brand as well. John Bianchi, Bill Rogers, a lot of others in this space were working with straps because there were leather holsters and they had snaps on them. And so if this had been a leather holster and you wanted to secure your firearm in it, now this is a Glock 45, it's empty, there's no magazine. You would insert it in the holster and you hope that it stayed there. That friction fit has been a commonality of holster design for as long as there are firearms that have been holstered realistically. But back then you would take a strap and you would put it over the top and you would button it down. And the way people began thinking about retention at that point in time was if you had one strap, that was kind of like a level 1 duty holster because that was one security mechanism that required one distinct motion to undo to pull the firearm out. So thus, Bill Rogers began to kind of codify this language and say one strap, if you put another strap around the backside of the trigger guard to hold here, that's a level 2 retention holster. If you had a strap here and a strap here and a strap around, that might be a level 3 because each strap required somebody to take one direct action to remove that. Now, industry-wide, this has become somewhat relaxed. There are people who look at friction fit holsters where a firearm sits in the holster, and that's maybe like a level 1 by their definition because there's some friction, and if you turn it upside down, the gun just doesn't completely fall out. But that's certainly not how we have used it at Safariland in relation to the term duty rated. So what we do is we build this out to where a security mechanism is something like the ALS itself, the locking mechanism that holds the firearm in place. If that also meets all of our other testing requirements, then it becomes duty rated. So this might be a level 1 duty rated holster with this ALS lock on it. But if you were to put the same ALS lock on a holster that does not meet our duty requirements, it's just a security device. This here is a paddle holster. People might refer to this colloquially as level 1, but it would never pass our actual strength testing because the way the paddle engages with the belt loop, the holster is not going to stay on the belt. So for Safariland, we take into account not only the strength of the holster, the strength of the security devices, but then we take into play the belt loops and the way it attaches to the belt on the person who's wearing it, because that gun not only has to stay in the holster, but the holster has to stay physically on the person who's wearing it in order for it to achieve a duty rating for us. So at Safariland, we borrowed Bill's technology. Bill Rogers had Rogers holsters and Safariland bought the company. We worked with Bill Rogers for a long time and continue to do so still in an advisory capacity. So we have taken his nomenclature and built it forward. So now what we have is a security device provides one level of retention in the ALS. But if you look at the SLS strap, the secure locking strap, there are 2 motions required to unlock the SLS. The first is down, but if you let go, it pops straight back up. So you have to go all the way down and all the way forward in order to open this to access this. So the down motion is 1 level. The forward motion equates to a 2nd level. Even though we only have 2 security devices, the automatic locking system and the secure locking strap, these 2 things here comprise 3 levels of retention for Safariland.
That's great. So talked about the retention levels and a little bit about the testing, is there, this additional testing that goes into these holsters? What are some of the tests that are performed?
Absolutely. After we establish that a firearm will fit within the holster body itself, and this is something obviously we do through design, we take and we lock up, and we want to make sure that this stays right there. And we begin a battery of tests. The firsts are always done almost casually, just a proof check with our prototypes. We do a lot of 3D printing. We do a lot of rapid prototyping on new fits and new holster designs. And as such, we will test them with firearms. We work to an incredible level of tolerance. A lot of our designs go down to a 6,000ths of an inch tolerance. So we can't even really do this with blue guns. We have to have the actual firearms in order to achieve the perfect lockup that we're looking for. But we begin by stressing this. Obviously, we have the belt loop, and we attach this to a fixed immovable object. That immovable object may be, a concrete post. Sometimes we've done it off of the trunk of an oak tree in our Jacksonville lot. We secure it, we lock it down, and then we begin seeing just how much force it can take across the board. And we have 6 tests that we do on every single holster fit, not just the holster body and the holster design, but every time we make a new fit, we retest all of these elements. And what we do there is we put the firearm in, we secure it, and then we take the grip of the gun and we move it in 6 separate directions. The first, of course, is trying to draw just up out of the holster. That lock has to withstand the force of a very strong human yanking on this for a prolonged period of time, 5 seconds in length, without the lock failing and compromising the holster. At the end of that, we release the security mechanisms, we draw and reholster to make sure everything is still functioning exactly like it should be. Then we take it and we do that same test 5 other ways. The first is obviously up, then we take and we yank it in this direction, we pull it over in this direction, out to the side, then we get on the floor and we reach up and we grab it and we pull it down from above. Every direction you can possibly grab the grip of the gun and move it is tested for that segment of 5 seconds off the same holster. So here is a 7TS holster that we tested back in August, doing a demonstration of the testing. I got my notes on the testing dates on there. And you can see the holster body is perfect. The UBL is a little bit bent. That plastic deforms, but it doesn't break. And that provides that retention level that we're looking for. So we put this through all of those testing. And the last is oftentimes the most destructive, because what we do is we grab the firearm from the top and the holster body from the side, and we twist the holster body like a propeller around and around in an attempt to rip it free from the UBL on the back. And this is oftentimes what gives us the deformity in the plastic here. In the end, after all of those tests, we put the firearm back in, back out, we check it. If it still works, then that clears us to begin the next round of testing. And what we do there is we attach this to physical machines that test the actual breaking strength of the locks by pulling until we reach a failure point. We have crush tests where we decide just exactly how strong the holster body is by how much force it takes to compromise the lock systems inside on an empty holster with heavy weighted objects or dropping from specific heights. We do extreme temperature testing. We will freeze them down below 0 and then perform the same tests. We will heat them up. And this is really to simulate what we oftentimes find coming back to us as questions from people who have used our holsters. It's not uncommon for somebody to have secured a firearm in the holster in a car, someplace where the temperature rises exorbitantly high, and then they have an immediate need for it. They want to make sure it's still going to work. We have people who obviously are serving in really extreme cold conditions. Even here in the United States, we want to make sure that the lock is not going to freeze up or that the plastic is not going to become too brittle. So we do all of our crush testing, all of our temperature testing, and at that extreme, at the very, very end of that, we give it what we refer to as a duty rating.
That's great. So what are the 3 holster family distinctions? If you can just run down those real quick.
Absolutely. So this is a very recent update actually that launched today of the 6000 series holster family. This is a 6000 with a large light and it has a very big open optics pocket on the backside that'll accommodate everything from an acro down to an RMR. Usually within the 6000 series, the RDS holsters have an optics hood that covers up and secures the back there that provides coverage for that. These are thermoformed holsters. They're built out of a material called Boltron. They are 3-hole pattern holsters, just like everything else. You can put any of the belt attachments that you would like on them. They're oftentimes built for specific firearms with very specific light and optics combinations. We have a tremendous number of them here within the Safariland sort of family SKU system. About 12 years ago, we introduced the 7000 series holsters. And a lot of the numbering from the 6000 to the 7000 series is common. So that's based off of the belt attachment that comes on the back of these. These are injection molded holsters. The 7000 series are lighter, they're smaller, they're still very, very popular with people who carry their firearms all day because these holsters are very unobtrusive. But because it is injection molded out of a nylon, it has a little bit of a slick plastic feel. Some people really like the way the Boltron feels, and then others like the way the Cordura nylon on top of the Boltron feels. The same performance standards for each of these holsters and across the 3 holster families, 6000, 7000, or what we have now with the holster that launched in January of 23, which is SafariVault. Vault, as we colloquially call it in-house, Vault is the strongest holster body we've ever built. The security devices on top, the belt attachments on back are common across all 3 lines. But if for some reason you were looking for a holster that is stylistically distinct or far more robust in terms of its construction, this is it. Vault has achieved a level of performance that we did not even expect ourselves when we began putting this together. This is an incredibly robust, super crush proof. The interior design of this has been built to accommodate an open light pocket or an open optics pocket, so you can have one fit with adaptable lights or optics. We have these designs, all 3 in place. None of them are going away. Vault, when we launched it, a lot of people thought, oh, Vault was meant to replace 70S. No, it wasn't. There's still very much a place for this. In fact, a lot of the people who are seeing Vault, they're curious about its size because Vault is larger side to side. Realistically, the 2 holsters for the same fit are very, very similar in size. Yet Vault is far more commanding in terms of the way it just takes up space. And even though there's not a lot of additional mass there, the perception of it is real. And that's one of the things that we're working with. So 70S still has a lot of very good practical applications. And in terms of its compact design and its lightweight, those are chief among them. The 60S has that perception of rigidity and ruggedness that comes from the thermoform design. And this holster's been out on the market for close to 40 years, constantly evolving. Like I said, this one here launched just today. This one with the small light pocket launched earlier in 2022. We're always making updates for fits, fit additions, light accommodations, red dots. If we have customers come back to us and ask for something different or new, we want to build that in. But especially with the 70S, the bottoms are closed off and they use a muzzle plug, which restricts the fit and the way you can use extended barrels, muzzle devices. So for our Vault, we've opened up the bottom, we've built that out. It's just a matter of adaptation. The specific features of the holster family will really push you towards whatever holster is actually right for your needs.
David, just one more question. How does the belt attachment affect a duty rating for these different series?
So on this holster here, it has a paddle. If you were to do the retention testing with this design with a belt loop, it will pass your retention for a level 1 holster because it has an ALS lock here at the top. If you were to do the same testing on the belt loop, as soon as you began pulling, you run the risk of taking the holster off the belt because of the way the paddle interacts. So sometimes we have paddles, sometimes there are clip locks or molly strap engagement systems that are just not designed to take that same amount of force on the belt system or the actual tension system that holds the firearm wherever it needs to be. Putting it on a belt loop on a duty belt, and we're talking about a heavily reinforced belt, because sometimes if we have tested these on people's concealed carry belts, we end up, pulling their pants a little direction they shouldn't necessarily go in a public setting. A duty belt, though, within this will hold this holster in place for the entire time.
Great. Well, David, I'd like to thank you for joining us today and sharing all the information about what makes Safariland holsters duty rated. And I'd like to thank Safariland for sponsoring this quick chat. And everybody, thank you for viewing our quick chat, and look forward to you guys joining us for other quick chats in the future. Thanks again.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it.